Hi, I'm Wendy Honig, the artistic director of Boca International Jewish Film Festival, and I am so excited because I'm here with Danny. Is it pronounced Thykær?
Thykær.
Thykær.
Yeah.
And Danny is the director of Lone Killer, but he's also Benjamin in it. So he's the writer, the director, the producer, and he stars in it. The Renaissance man. So Danny Thykær was his mother is Israeli and his father is Danish. He's
Yeah.
trained as an actor and director, and Danny has had leading roles in several award-winning films over 15 years. He has won international awards as an actor, director, and writer. Backgammon marked his feature film directorial debut in 2014, and the film won 18 international awards and was nominated for Motion Picture of the Year at the Danish Film Academy Awards. The Lone Killer is Danny's second feature film.
Yeah.
So, Danny, thank you for being here with us. So, I'm just going to say this for the sake of my audience. Danny was not able to be here because his mother went to the hospital. So, we're so thrilled that Danny is here with us and is going to answer questions. So, Danny, what first drew you to this story? Like, was there a particular moment when you knew this was a film you had to make?
Yeah, I mean, first off, thank you so much, Wendy, and also Leslie for everything. And yes, my mother is at the hospital right now, so that's why I'm not there. The reason I wanted to make this film is because when the incidents happened in Copenhagen, the two terrorist attacks, several of my colleagues were locked down in the city of Copenhagen because I don't want to give any spoilers, but when you watch the movie, at a certain point during the day, Copenhagen gets locked down. So initially, some of my colleagues were locked into in theaters. They were performing at night, and then the whole city shut down. And then for me, being Jewish in Denmark, it's always a thing. It's always, even though it's a great city and there's so many great people, you always have to kind of watch your back. Since I was a kid, actually, and so I wanted to make the film because I felt that the when I did all the research about the terrorist, he was angry at us, at the Jews, and he was angry at the Swedish cartoonists who did the Muhammad drawings. Um, and then what for me growing up, All the President's Men is one of my all-time favorite films. So I knew that I wanted to use the subject, but I also wanted to figure out how do I do this in a way that it speaks volumes about freedom of speech, journalism, terror, ethnicity, religion, all these subjects. And so when I finally did all the research, it took about 3 years. And then I wrote it and trying to figure out how this ensemble cast where you have 55 actors. So initially, because of the attacks and because of the familiarity of it, and then also because of my, I wanted to speak about being of a different ethnicity in Denmark.
Fantastic. So the film paints a complex portrait rather than a simple true crime narrative. How did you balance investigative storytelling with psychological exploration?
That's a very good question. I didn't want the terrorist to be the main POV. I didn't want him to take too much focus. I wanted to give some hints to why he did what he did. Um, and then I wanted it to be something that kind of it became a necessary stone for this paper to survive. But sometimes when you reach too far for stuff, then there's a payment of sorts. and there is one in the film because people die. Um, so to get both the structure was a way to figure out how do I do this where it's intense. So I figured if I do it in 24 hours, which was the same amount of time, he was from the first attack to the second attack, there was about 11 hours. And then, so you pretty much feel that running back and forth from the terrorist and the newspaper trying to figure out how do we use this? And sometimes tabloid journalism is tough and not always the right way to go. So there's also some small judgments on my parts about how media is today.
So, what were the challenges in researching and accurately portraying the facts in the film?
The the challenges were that not everything was given out by the Danish court system yet. So the trials were still going on, but because the perpetrator died, everything was not released. So I could only research what I like, what was there, what was actually also from the news paper stand, like what were the true stories of the day. So everything you hear in the film is real stuff that happened. And then regards to the perpetrator, what I did is that I could figure out about 80% of what he did, and then I kind of like creative writing figure out the last 20%. Now what was funny is that by the time the film came out, the last 20% were actually released, and I was about 17% right on those ones also. So even the small stuff I kind of creatively wrote in turned out to be true. Um, but it was, I mean, you want to do it right. You want to make sure all the different departments on a paper um, speak like you just don't want to make up stuff that's not real because you know that the scrutiny will be you mentioned that and that didn't happen that day, you know. So there's also a point of being accurate.
Fantastic. So, what were the biggest obstacles in gaining access to materials, witnesses, or perspectives for this film?
You know, it's funny. I didn't talk to any witnesses. I only read statements. And regarding details and venues, I visited them, I photographed them. So most of the venues that you see are the real ones. The first attack, the second attack, I was not allowed to shoot at the actual site because the Jewish synagogue had too strict a release order or whatever you want to call it. So the production, we even though the Danish police was nice and the synagogue was nice, it just wasn't possible because of the attacks. So we ended up shooting about 400 yards away from the actual synagogue. But it was hard, it was difficult, but you know, um, you do whatever is necessary to get the right story in a way.
So, what do you hope audiences will take away from the film beyond the crime itself?
You're you pose very good questions, Wendy, I gotta say. Well,
Thank
I
you.
hope I hope people will take that's been my experience in Los Angeles, San Diego, New York, Italy, France, Sweden, all the different places the film has been, is that they take away a lot of the humanity that um, real human beings have. This is very simplified, but real human beings have real jobs, and um, you do your best every day, and the feedback has been that they really they feel the film is very intense and they somehow see themselves in it. And I don't know, it's because we have so many different types of characters. So, and because all the journalists are different, you can see yourself either as the um, cultural department, or you can see yourself doing that news or that news or that news. So everybody keeps telling me that it clings to them several weeks after, which is always good as a filmmaker to hear.
As it did for us. I mean, we just love your film. So, were there any revelations during production that changed your original understanding?
Well, actually, not really, because I knew I didn't want to defend a man who was angry at us and at artists. Um, the only real revelations was actually we were sometimes in danger. When we did the second shooting, we were shooting in a really bad gang land neighborhood, and the police showed up and the first time, and then they came over, and my two line producers, they came over to me, and the police are like, where are your permits? And then they got the permits and the everything, and then they came back like 12 minutes later, and we were shooting, and we were only authorized to shoot 2 hours with actors in police uniforms and everything. And then they came back, and I was like, I went over to them, like, the director, I'm trying to get the shot here. I have the lights and everything, And then I said to him, What's wrong? I mean, I gave you the permits, everything." And he said, "Hey, Danny, we're not worried about you guys. It's just there are two cars watching you guys, and the cars are filled with people, and we don't know if they're armed or not." So that was like one of the revelations, because we had one of the line producers. She was only 24 years old, and she was basically guarding like $1 million worth of camera equipment and lighting equipment. We were still 30 people there, but because everybody's running around and you're trying to get the shots that you need within that frame, and you want to make it look as real as possible. So that was the only revelation, that sometimes you cannot don't endanger yourself or other people while doing films. um,
That sounds like wild.
it
So,
was.
after living with this story for so long, what still haunts you or stays with you the most?
I think every time I see it, um, it haunts me that the choice Benjamin has to make to save his family life has a price. It always kind of gets to me that at any moment you can make the wrong choice. So that stays with me, and I'm a very pragmatic guy. I do everything through math, through reason, through design. My maternal grandmother from Israel, my mother told me like 2 years ago, she was a mathematical genius. I had never known this. And I said to my wife, I said, "Wow, okay, maybe that's why I was always so good at math." And then my mom said, "Yeah, you have it from her." And I said, "Why did you never tell me? You didn't need to know. You needed to work it out on your own." So everything I do is through, how does this work? Is this necessary? What's the possibility of this happening or that happening and everything? So when I do a film like this, everything is very mapped out.
Wow. So, look, I, I don't know how you did this. So I just like to know. You the writer, the producer, the director, the actor. Talk about the challenges of doing all those things and being so much, of everything is part of this film.
Well, you design all the shots when you write the script. So I visually knew what I wanted the film to look like. So I go over that with my director of photography. I rehearse with all my actors because I'm trained as a method actor myself, and I want them to get into the characters. So I rehearse with them. And then there's the thing about figuring out the production schedule and where to shoot this, get the permits. And I don't want to, this is going to sound weird maybe, but we shot it in 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So we did 28 locations in 10 days, and it was regular shooting days. But because like I've done work on international TV series also as an actor, and sometimes you're shooting for like 12 hours and they're doing so many angles and takes that you don't really know where they're shooting you from anymore. I mean, basically. But that's because they don't know how they want to edit it. They don't know what they want it to look like, how they tell the story. So they want to be able to save it in the editing room. So when you do independent films where you have a budget of about $650,000, you need to make those choices beforehand. You need to know that, all right, you'll only get like many maybe two setups or four setups with a car driving in order to get the right shots. When you do a shooting, how many how many guns, how many shots, how many, all these things, and then you work with your actors and make sure that everybody knows where the parts are. And then when you shoot, it's difficult. And I gotta say, my wife will kill me for telling you this, but I collapsed on day 6 because I was making sure that the work rules were being supported, so nobody can work in Denmark without having 11 hours of rest until the next work day. So what I was doing is that when they were shooting daytime, I would also shoot night. So I had like 3 days where I didn't sleep. And then the last day of shooting in the newspaper house, my body just collapsed. But we had a hiatus of about 7 days, so I could sleep, and then we shot again,
Oh boy.
But that was
So
tough.
yeah, so my last question is, tell us something that happened during the filmmaking and whatever that, let's say, the audience doesn't know. Well, you just told us one thing, but tell us more.
Well, originally I wanted to have the cast even more ethnic. So one of the parts was actually written as a Asian Danish woman, and we had the homosexual character. We had so many different types because I wanted it to portray a real. So what sometimes happens in real life is that um, people who will on this kind of film maybe only make $550 a day, they get better deals. So we had a few actors that like jumped the boat like 2 days before, and I had to recast really fast. And one actress who is amazing, she plays the terrorist's mother. She phoned me up and said no the day before because she was going through a depression. And she hadn't told me for like 8 weeks. And I told her, look, Diana, you're a beautiful actress. It's only 3 scenes. It's You can do it. You don't have to worry about it. We've rehearsed it. And she says, but I don't want to show up and mess everything up. I said, you're not going to mess anything up because it's a part of a mother. You're a mother. You might not have a son that does what you would want him to do as a mother, but this is where the fiction comes in. It's just a part. You're just an actress. There aren't that many lines. And I like convinced her like 7.5 hours before shooting, I convinced her to show up because otherwise I probably wouldn't have been able to do those scenes. And for me, those scenes with the other mother, not just Benjamin's mother, but the terrorist's mother, was important. So you would have a way of looking at these people like it's 24 hours in a day, and they each wake up different ways. They each see their mother, but the way the life and the 24 hours outcome is very different. And that's what happens sometimes when you shoot independent is that, especially if you have about 80, 90 people on set, is that stuff is going to happen. We had the whole building, the whole 4 storages, all the fuse boxes went out.
Oh
Like
my
so we had no lights, and we had 4 people on the catering team, and they couldn't cook, you know. So for like I think it was precisely 37 minutes. There was no power, no electricity, and the rice that was supposed to be cooking, and also the vegetable food that was supposed to be cooking in the ovens went out. These are some of the things that
Oh,
happen.
yeah, all
So
kinds of wild things. So, Danny, I can't thank you enough for being here. We're all
my
praying
pleasure.
that your mom gets better quickly, makes a complete and speedy recovery.
Thank
And
you.
we will miss you so much, but at least the audience will get to see you and hear you answer the questions, and that was so great. So Danny, I can't thank you enough again, and how much we appreciate it. It blesses our festival to have someone like you come and speak.
And bless you, Wendy, for allowing me to answer some questions. I hope I wasn't too long-winded, and thank you so
Yeah.
much for making the film part of your festival.